Okay, I'm back, and what I'm doing here today is I'm going to put some tile on the ceiling of this shower. Okay, and so what I've got done here is I've got cement board, backer board, put over the studs up here. I have taped all the seams with alkali resistant tape and thin set mortar, and that's been dry for quite some time. The other day I put some red guard. This is a rubberized waterproofing liquid that you paint on. I put 2 coats of that on here. Okay, and now, so what I've done is I've laid out a pattern. I've drawn it onto the ceiling of the shower where I want to put the tiles. And I went the other day and I cut the tiles. These are all the tiles that are going to fit in here. And because this one's cut out for the light, I'm going to put that one in first and I'm going to fit the others around it. Okay, so what I've done is I've mixed up some large format tile mortar. This is a modified mortar. And as you can see, I've mixed it fairly dry. Okay, that's not really gonna slump much. So the trick is when you're putting this stuff on, especially overhead, not to have it too liquidy, okay? Okay, so I just ran on some mortar up there. I've got a, it looks like a 3/8 notched trowel here, 3/8 of an inch notches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go over that. Like that. And the idea is you don't want to take mortar off. You just want to put this in at quite an angle so this stands up. And you stand up those little ridges of mortar. Just like that. Okay? There. All right. Now that's prepped for the first tile. Now, scrape off the excess. Okay. And this tile is going to go in there like that. And I've already dry fit everything. So what I've done is every time I cut a tile, I would hold it up in place, make sure it looks right. And that's why you see some of these little marks on here. They'll all come off afterwards. I'll just wipe these off with alcohol after. But yeah, you make sure you got your dry fits so you know they're going to work. And what I like to use to put the mortar on the backs of these with is just a 6-inch taping knife. I find I get good coverage with that. Go like that. You don't want it too thick. Just put it on nice and heavy and then wipe it off. Okay, like that. Okay, when you've back buttered the tile, you want full coverage, okay? Just like that, not too thick. And you remember you've got it up there too, so now, so here we go. Put the tile up. And I've got some lines drawn on here so I can see where they go. Now, come back this way just a little bit. What's more important than my line, what I did was I came over about 1/2 inch from the line, and that sets me up for this back piece here. I'll show you in a second, but it's the hole I want to make sure I got right. Move it back and forth a little bit if you can, like 1/2 inch or so each way. And what that'll help do is bond the mortars together. Okay, and then just push up with some pressure. Hold that in there. You don't have to hold it too long. And there. That should be fine. Okay, that's one. People are afraid that these are going to fall off. They're not going to fall off. That's bonded quite well. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this piece in here beside it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to put a rough edge, the cut edge, towards the wall. So that's going to go here like this. See that? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some mortar on here. And then what I'm going to do is put some tile spacers in between here, and I'll show you those in a second. Another thing I like to do is I like to take an old chisel and I just like to wipe next to the tile like this, just so you get out the excess mortar, so where that tile spacer is going to go. So the system I'm using here with tile spacers is this kind here. It's a little T shape that goes up under the tile like that. One goes up in there, one goes up in here. Okay, so I'm going to back butter this tile now. You notice the mortar is quite stiff. You don't want it too runny, especially for overhead. You want it you want it moist, but you don't want it runny. Okay. The other thing with making mortar, mixing it thick like this is it sets up quicker than if it was runnier, right? So don't mix up too much mortar at once, just mix up enough for a few tiles. And then that way you're not going to be in a panic about having to go fast because the mortar's starting to dry out on you, right? It's starting to harden. So just go like that. Okay, that's back buttered quite well. The excess off of there. Don't want too much on there. Yeah, just scrape off the excess, like that. Okay, now, we're gonna put this up there. We're gonna put the cut edge towards the wall, like that. And we'll sit this tile in against those spacers, just like this. Bring it up, like so. Okay, just get a little bit, make sure that gap has got no mortar in it. You'll really suffer later if you have to scrape out hard mortar from that gap to put your grout in there. Okay, get some mortar in there. Now I'm gonna put my tile spacers in. Notice I've cleaned a little edge there. I've run my little chisel along there. I just took out excess mortar in that area. Now I put my little tile spacers in here. I like to use quite a few of these. And one there. And one here. Okay. Okay. Cut edge towards the wall. And scrape off the excess mortar. Okay. Oh, there's a hot one there too. Okay. It's up in here, like that. Don't worry about these gaps here. I'm going to put stone on this wall around it. You won't see those gaps. Okay, so I got my tool and my little wedges here. So I'm just going to put the wedges in the holes. Like that. Like that. Wedges. Like that. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, this tool, it stops it on one side. It lets the wedge pass through on the other. So what you do is you just put this behind the wedge like that. And just squeeze it. I'm going to pull that tile out a little bit. Look up for the gap. Okay, that's looking good. And this one, pull it out. Pull that one out. There, that's looking good. I think that's fine. All right. Pull this one out a little bit. All right. Now, what the wedges do is they level the tiles with each other. They level them with each other. Okay. Okay, so I've got the mortar on here on this other section. I've got it troweled and I've cleaned out the space next to the other tile. Get a little more out of there. Like that. And we've got our tile spacers we're going to put in there. From there. It goes. Like that. Okay, next time I'm going to have a light in here. It's kind of a dark place to show a video, but I always promise to do better next time. Okay. Now what you do with these in a day or two or whenever you want, you can leave it set as long as you like. Let it make sure it's good and dry before you take these wedges out, but you would just hit that sideways with a little rubber hammer. Just tap it like that. Don't want to crack the tile. And what will happen is the bottom of that T of this, that little T under the holder there will snap off. So you get to reuse your wedges. And that bottom, this piece here is discarded or recycled, this little piece that sticks up. And the other piece stays under the tile. Okay. Okay, I got those tiles up there. And while those are setting, I'm going to prep this edge for my cultured stone that's going to go over this. And there's a bit of a gap here, and what I've done is I've put silicone between the cement board and the top of the shower. Covered any little holes. That's all been set for a day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here with this bit of mortar I've got left in the bucket. And I'm just going to fill that gap. I'm just going to go along here. Just going to go along like that. And make a nice continuous seam there. Okay. Just going to go along like that. If ever any water comes down, if it gets through the mortar, it's got the lip of the shower, it's got silicone on the gap, so you're pretty much not going to get any water in there at all. Okay, you just want to make sure, put this on neatly, and you get off any excess off the shower before you let it harden. That. That'll give you a nice smooth surface of mortar right up to the edge of the shower. Okay. Don't do this before you've filled this gap with silicone in here and dealt with all this, because if water gets in behind, it's going to go right in that crack. Okay, you don't want water to go in that crack, so make sure you've silicone this little gap here first. Let it dry. Probably a day is good. This has been about a day. Okay. Just come out like that. Alright. Okay, so I got the mortar around the edge. And there's one more important job to do. I'll show you what that is in a second. Okay, so this is the mortar I'm using for that. I'm using a Spursabon. It's large format tile mortar, and it is a polymer modified mortar. It just helps it stick better, especially overhead like that. Larger tiles overhead. Okay. What you got to do as well is when you've worked with concrete is you've got to make sure you clean up your tools while it's still, while the mortar is still soft. Because otherwise, you're going to be scraping it off hard. the next day. So here we are. Here's a tip, you know, if you're looking for trowels, very often swap meets or garage sales. People will, you know, buy a trowel. Sometimes they'll use it once, or, you know, it'll hang on a peg in the shed for years. And, you know, there's no reason to go out and have to buy, you know, a $20 trowel all the time. Just keep an eye on those kinds of things when you're out and about. And I've got a lot of my trowels and knives and things like that for drywall from yard sales, garage sales. Yeah. It's often overlooked at a yard sale too. People will look at that now, I don't want that, but you know, you bring it home and clean it up and you've paid, what, 50 cents for it or something? Yeah, it makes it so much easier for the next time when you've cleaned all your tools up. Get all that old mortar off of everything. Okay. On both sides. And then I'm going to put those other pieces up there.